to find a means to be able to inspire them to get involved in all sorts of activities.
It's such a shame that good news, and especially good news about young people.
He's been quiet for years, but now Prince Edward has reportedly made a shocking admission. I tried to warn her. Was it too late? What secrets has the royal family been hiding? You won't believe what we've uncovered. Stick around and make sure to subscribe for the latest royal drama. Prince Edward has always kept a low profile. While his siblings often grabbed headlines, whether for official duties or public controversies, Edward quietly went about his royal responsibilities. But when he was officially granted the title Duke of Edinburgh, something shifted. This wasn't just any title. It was the same one held by his father, Prince Philip, a man who carved out a reputation through dedication, duty, and one of the most respected youth programs in the world. Edward receiving this title was not just symbolic, it was the culmination of a long-standing promise made by Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip more than 2 decades earlier. But behind the polished royal announcements and smiling photo ops, some wondered, why now? Why after all these years? And more importantly, was Edward truly prepared for the legacy he had inherited? What stirred curiosity even more was a rumored statement allegedly made by Edward, where he said, "I tried to warn her," a cryptic message. But who was her? And what exactly did he try to warn about? After the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, Edward expressed his feelings not with dramatic gestures, but through a heartfelt message that revealed the quieter, deeply emotional side of the royal family. In a rare statement, Edward reflected on what it meant to share your parents with the entire world. He said it was a privilege to have had private time at Balmoral to say goodbye, but he also recognized the importance of letting others mourn too. He spoke warmly of how he and Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, enjoyed watching their children, James and Louise, spend time in places that their grandparents cherished. Lady Louise, in particular, took up carriage driving, a passion passed down directly from Prince Philip. That kind of generational connection was something Edward held close. These reflections weren't just about personal memories. They were subtle reminders that behind the formal titles and ceremonial roles were real people with real emotions. And yet, even in grief, Edward remained composed, thoughtful, measured. Still, there was a growing sense that something more was going on beneath the surface. What had he seen coming? And why did it feel like his words were carrying a deeper meaning? Then came the moment that stopped many in their tracks. A quiet comment, possibly offhand, possibly intentional, but definitely not forgotten. "I tried to warn her." Those 5 words set royal watchers into a spiral of speculation. Who was he referring to? Was it Meghan Markle? Was it a nod to a broader tension within the family? Or was it about the pressures of royal duty itself? Though Edward never publicly elaborated, the quote, circulated among palace insiders and media outlets, sparked widespread interest. What was clear was that Edward, though not one to stir drama, had finally let something slip, and that made people listen. Interestingly, when asked directly about the tensions with Harry and Meghan, Edward responded with an unexpected softness. He said, "It's very sad," and continued, "We've all been there." That last line spoke volumes. Edward didn't point fingers, he didn't criticize, but he made one thing clear. He understood what it felt like to be under pressure, under scrutiny, and struggling to find a place in a world of royal expectations. Was this what he had warned about? The public had long speculated about internal family dynamics, especially after Harry and Meghan stepped away from their roles and moved abroad. While many royals remained tight-lipped, Edward's responses were notably more human. When asked about the name Lilibet, a deeply personal nickname used for Queen Elizabeth II, Edward acknowledged the emotional complexity of the moment. He didn't offer harsh judgments. Instead, he said, "We wish them happiness. That's fantastic news." But it was what he didn't say that stood out. By choosing to remain calm and respectful, Edward may have been sending a message without using direct words. His approach wasn't about taking sides. It was about preserving dignity. Still, his demeanor suggested a quiet frustration. Not anger, not bitterness, but maybe disappointment. He had likely seen the cracks before others did. And when the public fallout began, perhaps all he could think was, "I tried to warn her." Becoming the Duke of Edinburgh was no small moment. The title had lived with Prince Philip for over 70 years. It symbolized more than rank. It carried expectations, legacy, and responsibility. Edward had waited patiently. For over 2 decades, he served as the Earl of Wessex, committed to causes involving youth, the arts, and public engagement. But the title of Duke had always been on the horizon, something promised, but never quite within reach. When it finally came on his 59th birthday, it was seen by many as a long overdue recognition. But was it also a weight? Being Duke of Edinburgh meant stepping into shoes shaped by a man who had been deeply involved in public service around the globe. From representing the crown to building lasting programs for young people, the legacy wasn't just about royal lineage, it was about impact. So when Edward accepted the title, he wasn't just accepting a crown, he was accepting a mission. And if others underestimated the responsibility tied to such a name, maybe that was the warning he tried to give. While many know Prince Edward as a reserved member of the royal family, those close to him say his heart beats loudest when he's working with young people. That passion has found its clearest expression through his continued leadership of the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, a global youth program his father started in 1956. What began as a British initiative has now become a worldwide movement, active in over 130 countries, helping millions of young people gain confidence, life skills, and leadership qualities. Edward has spent years quietly growing and modernizing the program to fit today's world, one where many young people feel left behind or unheard. And it's not just for the privileged. One of the most remarkable things about this award is its reach among marginalized and disadvantaged youth. In the United States, for example, nearly half of all participants come from what the program calls at-risk communities. This isn't just an after-school activity, it's a life changer. Edward has spoken passionately about how the award helps participants take ownership of their futures. It's about giving them a framework, he said. It's not just about adventure or doing fun things, it's about setting goals, growing as people, and seeing what they're truly capable of. He believes in the transformational power of hands-on learning. From community service and skill building to physical challenges and team expeditions, the award pushes young people outside their comfort zones in the best way possible. Take Christina Ayanian, for example, a U.S. recipient of all 3 award levels, bronze, silver, and gold. She shared how her journey began with something as simple as volunteering at a local food pantry. That experience opened her eyes to the real needs around her and sparked a lifelong mission to help others. During the pandemic, she organized food drives, partnered with businesses, and mobilized community support. All of it, she says, was inspired by what the Duke of Edinburgh's Award taught her about empathy and leadership. It's stories like these that energize Edward and remind him why the work matters. But not all of the public reactions to his leadership have been straightforward. During a visit to Australia, Edward made a comment that stirred controversy, perhaps unintentionally, referring to a tragic past incident connected to an expedition gone wrong. He mentioned that the idea that you could get hurt doing this actually seemed to attract more interest from young people. Now, to be clear, Edward never suggested that danger was a goal of the program. He emphasized that every precaution is taken to keep participants safe. But what he was trying to express was that real challenge is compelling. That authentic adventure, and not just ticking boxes, is what drives young people to grow. When the experience is real, it changes you. Some critics felt his comments were too casual. Others believed he was simply being honest about the risks and rewards of youth development in the real world. Either way, his message was clear. Young people want something meaningful, and sometimes meaning comes with challenges. In a world where youth programs are often watered down or overly controlled, the Duke of Edinburgh's Award stands out for its authenticity. It asks more from its participants, but it also gives back more in return. And perhaps that's the deeper layer of Prince Edward's alleged warning, that entering into something, be it royal life or public service, requires more than appearances. It requires endurance, growth, sometimes even discomfort. He's not just running a program, he's defending a belief that every young person, no matter their background, deserves the chance to test themselves and discover what they're truly made of. Prince Edward's story doesn't follow the traditional royal script. He wasn't the heir, he wasn't the rebel, he wasn't the one in the headlines. And yet over time, he has become one of the most steady and dependable figures in the entire royal family. It's easy to overlook someone who rarely seeks the spotlight. But that might be what makes Edward so effective. While others drew attention through drama or spectacle, Edward quietly built a career rooted in consistency, empathy, and service. He didn't begin his royal life with grand expectations. In fact, after a short stint in the Marines and some work in television production, Edward stepped into his royal duties with little fanfare. But over the years, he evolved. His focus shifted toward community, arts, education, and especially youth development. And behind the scenes, he became a key player in the monarchy's modern evolution. He and his wife Sophie transitioned into full-time working royals in the early 2000s and never looked back. From hosting international receptions to supporting dozens of charities, Edward proved himself as someone who shows up, does the work, and keeps going. When Prince Philip passed on the title of Duke of Edinburgh, many saw it as symbolic, not just of a name, but of a torch being passed. And who better to carry that torch than the son who most closely followed his father's quiet strength and sense of purpose? His personality is different from Philip's, of course. Where Philip was known for being blunt and outspoken, Edward is more reflective and cautious. But that caution doesn't come from fear. It comes from a place of awareness. He understands how delicate the royal role is in today's world, and he chooses his moments carefully. So when Edward reportedly said, "I tried to warn her," it landed with surprising weight. Not because he was being dramatic, but because he's not one to speak without reason. If those words were truly his, then they likely came from a place of real concern, earned through years of watching, learning, and living the royal life in full. He's been there through it all: private family changes, public scrutiny, and the evolving responsibilities of the crown. Yet through each twist, he's remained anchored, grounded, always the quiet strength. And maybe that's the real difference between Prince Edward and many others. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, it's not about creating a moment, it's about meaning. He's seen the highs and the lows of royal life. He's watched as choices, public and private, shape the future of the monarchy. And maybe, just maybe, he's learned that the best leadership doesn't always come from the loudest voice in the room. It comes from the one who listens first, the one who waits, the one who understands the long game. Edward may not have sought attention, but he has earned respect. And that respect comes from decades of consistency, loyalty, and quiet courage. Perhaps now, in this new role as Duke of Edinburgh, we'll see him step into the light just a little more. Not to grab it, but to guide it. And for those willing to listen, his words, however subtle, might just be the ones we need most. So what did Prince Edward really mean when he said, "I tried to warn her"? Was it a comment on royal life? A reflection on the challenges of public service? A private moment accidentally made public? Or perhaps it wasn't meant to point at one person, but instead at all who enter this world without fully understanding the weight that comes with it. In the end, Edward's story isn't just about titles and ceremonies. It's about loyalty, patience, and navigating a life where the lines between duty and personal identity are often blurred. He reminds us that real strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, thoughtful, patient, and when someone like that finally speaks up, maybe we should be listening a little more closely. What do you think Edward meant by his words? Was it a message to someone specific, or a broader truth about the cost of royal life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to explore more royal stories filled with mystery, legacy, and unexpected twists, don't miss our next video. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.